Emir, Kusturica. First of all, I would like to apologize for. So we wanted to show a 35mm print. This one is so it's the one I saw when it was released in Portugal in 1990, and it has so in the passage at the beginning and the end of the reels it has some some vertical lines, but it. We would like to. There isn't a restored copy of this, or is there?
There is no copy. There is.
So we have. When you need one.
I have one video, a digital video, which I hope one day will be made into the DCP or something that has a longer. Yeah. Life, but we still have negative, so hope one day we'll do better copy.
Okay, thank you. Why did you decide to make a film in the with the gypsies? Is it because they don't obey conventions as your films don't?
You know, making film with the gypsies is always bizarre, because whatever you do with the gypsies is in the beginning different from what you need to move with the cinema with the people who are not gypsies. And what is important for me in this movie is it's 1986. It's the beginning of something that is a very, I would say, normal today. People, selling kids, selling women. At this period of history of Europe, it was a scandal. And out of this a real story that I was told, we made together a script with a friend of mine, and we made a movie, which was my response to what I liked in the literature at that time, which was Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Castaneda, and all these magic realism people. It's strangely enough, diving into the gypsies world brings you very close to Latin America. And when I was thinking why this, I came to the conclusion that both sides of the world are never Christianized enough. They always stay pagans somehow. And somehow the rule of the life was not like the rule of the life was mainly in Western Europe. That's why it's much easier to start singing, to kiss somebody, to kill somebody, and all what you see in this film. What is very important is the base of a document on which this story is made, based on the real story of a man who told us all what you've seen in the film.
But I was surprised because I hadn't seen the film since 1990, and there are some rhymes with your latest film.
I have to correct you, 89.
Yeah, but here it was released.
1990, probably later.
Yeah, later. And there are some rhymes with your latest film. One is that love is the thing that is worth, but it's in a certain way impossible. There are those beautiful plans of the bride when when she's going to give birth to the child, and that is very beautiful but tragical at the same time. And that same tragedy happens with the bride of the latest film.
I am obsessed by, you know, in this territory that I mentioned, even on both sides of the planet, you still have, I think in Portugal you have a similar situation. It's the question of countries which are still maintaining the classical way of wedding, and demographically they are very much low. Mortality rate is bigger than the birth rate. And especially in the gypsies community. But there is a secret of survival which does not understand high-level industrialized people, comfort and all of this. It says that, you know, the secret of life is not exactly in the line that we are following today. Even we like to ride the planes, the beautiful cars, whatever, but the life of these people is something that has the elan vital, the force of life, I think, much stronger. Why do they do so many weddings? I think because they are afraid of death. You know, wedding is something that is very, I would say, celebratory. You want to celebrate something. What do you want to celebrate? A marriage. Today, it's even passé, because today, modern life understands mixed marriages, no marriages, life like this, life like that. I have nothing to do against, but I'm very much into a painting. And I believe that motives that you start doing with the first movie, they have to be motives to the end of the life, no matter how much it fits into the modernity of life or how much not. So that's why even in the last movie, and in every movie, I have very similar circumstances out of which I do my films. This film was made in the best period of my life with a team of people. Unfortunately, many of them do not exist anymore. Some do. And it was one of the peaks of a life of an author. That's why we need to make a new print.
And there's a circularity here. In the end, the young Peran kind of replaces the adult Peran who dies.
It's you know what? It's I'm coming from the period of Europe when Marxism was alive, when this corporative capitalism was not outraging and raging around the world the way it does. We had the world separated in between East and West, and it was not the West that wishes just go to the East, but somehow there was a balance of the world. And in this balance, we created some kind of knowledge and experience that was leaning towards this knowledge. So dialectic idea of one replacing the other was very much present. Today, I don't envy young people at all. I think they are just, I would say, in a much worse position than we are, because of number of challenges and temptations is enormous. And what is my experience? Love through the internet or a live love? What is the cool idea of life today? Dispersed. You have a million possibilities. So this film was also ending with the tragic element. And when I was doing one of my films, I see that this one was as a comedy. I did a comedy, pure comedy, which was called Promise Me This. And many journalists in Cannes attacked me for doing just a comedy, which is funny. You could be attacked even to make a comedy. But I'm happy that I was going through all of this, because it makes full sense for somebody who wants to do the film. This film is very, I would say, typical for from many aspects. One is it was announcing destruction of Yugoslavia because of all these things that we couldn't imagine in 70s, that you could have a normal trafficking of children, normal trafficking of women today, normal trafficking of all. Everything is becoming normal and acceptable, except if does not serve the purpose. If serve the purpose, everybody is happy. So this is very different period of time, and I always said, and yesterday I told you, my major idea is that time writes through you, or time tells the story through you. You cannot be just saying something that is absolutely out of your time. And today, young people, when they meet such a theme, such a subject, I think they would make it absolutely different.
Mm-hmm. Now we can open up to the audience.
Hello, I'm glad to be here, and sorry, Emir, that yesterday I showed up like that, shaking hands with you on the stage and presenting myself. I'm happy that I can say that I was present on the shooting of this movie, and it was like 30 years ago. I was 5 or 6 years old, and my father was vođa snimanja, Tome Molovski, of this movie. Yeah. He was the leader of the shooting. I don't know how to translate.
The first AD, yeah.
Yeah, and I was glad now after so many years to see my best friend, which was with the son of the healthy Ahmed. He was my best friend. We were running around, and I remember my father and my mother was waking me up because he didn't want, at 5 o'clock in the morning, because he didn't want it to shoot without having his friend around him. And I was on one of the scenes. I don't think that there's scenes, but I have so little memories of this. For example, the wedding. I have memory of the wedding in that tent. And I wanted to say that. I don't know, I was crying when I see it, this movie with the Serbian translation, I laugh very much. But this time I was crying. I don't know why. And so I wanted to say about the scene in the river. That I think that scene in the river, I feel it like one of the best scenes that I have ever seen in all of the movies that I have seen until now. Because I don't know if maybe it's emotional, because once my father was saying, ti nemaš pojma što sve trebaše da se napravi ta scena. You don't have an idea what we passed through to make this scene. And okay, I just wanted to share this with you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Your father was of great help in the movie, and all what we did over there was exercising something that looked to anybody impossible, which is to make a scene, very paganistic scene on the river, and people celebrate Saint George, and to do a replica to some films that I loved when I was a young filmmaker, which was coming out of Rubljov. Rubljov had a scene on the river in which pagans, Russians, were baptized and taken out of a celebration that was of this kind. And I wanted to do something that was, in general, an image of the collective consciousness of society, together with a main character who was getting matured overnight and falling in love at the same time. So it was very difficult to do it, and we did this scene. I remember that this was a scandal, like always. 14 days we were doing this scene. 2 weeks on the river, looking for the sun and the best period of time, so the scene could look as beautiful as we wanted. And that's why it was like in any movie, I think most of the difficult part is very physical. I'm getting analytic, and I want to let people know what are the different conditions we used to have and filmmakers do have today. But this is just a wish of one person who is infecting the others with a great idea, and everybody then becomes a follower. This scene was quite difficult, and this film was incredibly difficult. But we were much younger and much stronger to go for this idea.
Dobro večer. Ja sam Franjo. Nice to meet you. Personally, I'm really happy to be here to be honest. I'm Peruvian. I'm here living in Portugal, and my father is from Croatia. I have a really great respect for your work, and I want just to say, I'm here for you, and for your movie, your work. And I was growing, when I was younger, I was growing with Yugoslavia in my mind. No Croatia, no Serbia, just Yugoslavia. I was enjoying the gypsy music. I was growing with that, and still enjoying and crying sometimes at home, and I was crying here. Because when I went to see my family there, I was looking that. I was looking part of your movie. The gypsies around enjoying this kind of music, not only in Bosnia, not only in Croatia, in Slovenia, in Belgrade, that I have friends there. So it's really important for me and for my kids, because they are here, to show some part of the history of Yugoslavia and the people there, you know. So for that reason, I'm here seated in front of you with my child and this crew here to say thank you very much for you and for your work and for still alive. Long life for you. Thank you. Hvala. Hvala I tebi. I
Hvala,
puno.
živio. Hvala, hvala. I'm very happy to see that people mention even today Yugoslavia, because it was a great country. A big country with great potentials, with good energy, created in between, as a bridge in between the worlds. It was ultimate wish of all Southeastern Slavs to have a country together. Unfortunately, force majeure that was coming from the other side of the ocean gave this kind of implemented infection in which everybody apparently felt badly in this country. But I think the reasons are pure militaristic and strategic, and something that copes with many elements that we don't need to mention. But this was, everybody who speaks about Yugoslavia, doesn't have respect, is lying, because this was a country developed on the basis of the victory of the World War II, developed thanks to the stable country in between East and West, developing nations. Many nations get emancipated first time under Tito's Yugoslavia, and this sad story is, even if it's about gypsies, it contains the ingredients of what you are speaking about, which is the sorrow that we lost a territory in which specific culture and a real multi-ethnic life was taking place in time, which is not the case today. So today we have it just in the memory, and it's like it's gone somewhere into our spirit, into our memories, but it doesn't exist in reality, except in the movies and in the memories of good people.
We talked already, but just to mention this, I watch your movies again and again. I watched them in Belgrade, I watched them in the US, I watched them now. I downloaded them, I pirated them all, and watched them again. And every time it's different. But I want to mention someone who brought you to my attention. Of course, I watched Dolly Belly, Otac na službenom putu, at the beginnings of the war. Yeah? When the Serbs, and I'm not a Serb, I'm a Yugoslav, were being portrayed as Nazis in the US. And it was David Binder. He had an interview with you in the New York Times. And then he was removed to write obituaries. He wrote obituaries till the end of his career in the New York Times. All I want to say is, every time that I watch your movies, and now it's a different perspective from when I was young, but it's absolutely true. You are one of the rare symbols of Yugoslavia for us who have lost our homeland. And the second thing is a more specific comment. There are recurring themes that I noticed, and one is the veil and children, the innocence of children, amid an atmosphere of peril which would turn out to be war. Almost in every movie, I think maybe only on the Milky Road, there is no child in that last movie. But every other movie is seen from and you film the faces, and it's seen from the perspective very much of a child, even as you yourself were maturing, and not 27, but 45. There's kind of a yearning for that innocence, I find. That's all I want to say. I find it lovely.
I'm very happy that you follow my cinema so much, and I see that we share in common the same idea about a lost country. And when we were trying to preserve it, it was because of the children that we wanted to be saved from what the tragedy was coming over there. What I believe about David Binder was also getting older, and he was removed from being a correspondent of New York Times because he was too much. There is one line that brings all us together. Once you start speaking too much about Yugoslavia, they start saying to you, you are pro-Serb, which is funny, but it's not funny in historical reality, because when Gavrilo Princip and young youth were preparing the assassination of Austrian Franz Ferdinand, they were infected by many ideas of anarchists who killed the kings around the world. There were 1,000 killings. And I remember when Serbia, the first country who gained the independence in 1912, Serbia had a government. When people who were ready to assassinate anybody in Croatia, Croatians were coming to see what Serbia did. It was the golden period of something that was leading to the World War I, in which there is a big lie, in which they accused Serbia of starting the World War I, because we know in history, big war cannot be started by the small country. Since Balkan is very complicated, films are much easier to get emotion, because when you start speaking about history, then you will have different options of all the nations who were Yugoslavs at that time. That's why the movies are the best documents of the past, because they include emotion that everyone could share, but not the facts, because everybody sees the facts differently. There was the case with the correspondent of the New York Times who was publishing an interview with me in which I was just expressing my Yugoslav feelings, and they all were very much against. But I reached this point, as much as you insist politically to be Yugoslav, in the end they say this guy is Serbian nationalist, which is not true. But anyway, I'm lucky because I have my movies who save me from all the political condemnations or all political wrong statements against me.
Well, tonight we can't go further because there's another session and we have to go to the closing ceremony. But the next screening will be your Super 8 stories about the no smoking band. I would like you to say something about that film.
The film was made based on the personal data and personal documents that everybody was taking on the first tour, and first tour was designed in the end of NATO aggression on Yugoslavia and bombardment of Belgrade. And I was trying to take out my son from Belgrade. He didn't want to go away. And then I said, let's do the tour of the band in Italy and afterwards around the world. And it was coinciding with the success of the film Black Cat, White Cat, which was known all over the world, and especially there was music, Balkan music, but not strictly Balkan music from underground, but Balkan music that was rearranged and prepared to be listened all over the world. So this adventure of 1999 continues, and we are still playing, and we are playing at least 60, 70 times a year. We have now a tour in Latin America, and we go to New Zealand, to Taiwan, to Australia, everywhere after the New Year.
Thank you, Emir. Thank you all.